There was a period when potatoes were not cultivated in typical rows, not deeply planted, and not grown according to contemporary agricultural instruction. In the early 20th century, small-scale farmers quietly practiced a technique that yielded up to 3 times more tubers from the identical land. This approach required no fertilizers, no chemicals, and minimal excavation. However, it subsequently vanished, not due to its ineffectiveness, but because it proved overly efficient outside the burgeoning industrial agricultural framework. By 1905, agricultural publications from Eastern Europe, Russia, and rural France documented an unusual cultivation method. Farmers placed seed potatoes directly on the soil surface, covered them with organic material, and never performed subsequent hilling. This eliminated repetitive labor and soil disruption, relying solely on layering. The results astounded early agronomists, demonstrating increased tuber yields, larger clusters, reduced disease incidence, and significantly less labor. Yet, this method presented a significant drawback. It resisted mechanization. As farming gravitated toward tractors, standardized rows, and uniform planting depths, any technique that eschewed machinery was labeled primitive. Consequently, the surface method was quietly removed from agricultural manuals, disappearing entirely by the 1930s. Its replacement emphasized control, deep planting, aggressive hilling, exposed soil, and heavy fertilization, all practices engineered for machinery rather than biological principles. The suppressed method did not entirely vanish. It persisted in home gardens, wartime plots, and subsistence farms, passed down through families without formal nomenclature. The instruction was simply, lay them down, cover them, leave them alone. This was not born of idleness, but keen observation. Potatoes naturally evolved to form tubers in loose, cool, oxygen-rich layers, not in compacted or disrupted soil. The 1905 method succeeded because it emulated the conditions of a forest floor, layered, protected, and teeming with life. When yields tripled, this method became a threat to systems reliant on labor, fuel, and external inputs. The prescribed method is straightforward, yet each step is crucial. Seed potatoes are positioned directly on the soil surface, not buried. Spacing is broader than in modern rows to facilitate lateral growth. The underlying soil remains undisturbed, safeguarding fungal networks and microbial structures. The pivotal stage involves covering, not burying. A substantial layer of straw, hay, leaves, or mixed organic matter is placed over the potatoes, initially 20 to 30 centimeters deep. As the plants develop, more material is added to the top, never soil. This creates a living mound that functions differently from bare earth. Organic layers regulate temperature, retain moisture, and permit free oxygen penetration. Tubers develop upward and outward, avoiding compression downward, which prevents malformation and rot. Crucially, stolons form continuously. In traditional cultivation, hilling often truncates potential growth zones. With the layered technique, each new layer offers a fresh opportunity for tuber development, leading to multiplied yields. A single seed potato can produce tubers at multiple vertical levels, yielding not merely one, but several harvest zones. Pest incidence declines dramatically. Colorado potato beetles struggle to locate plants, and soil-borne diseases are thwarted in the absence of exposed, compacted ground. Blight spreads more slowly due to improved airflow and reduced splashback from rain. Watering becomes largely optional as mulch efficiently retains moisture, virtually eliminating drought stress. Harvesting is gentle, requiring no digging or damage. The layers are simply pulled back, and clean potatoes are manually collected. This method prioritizes biology over brute force, rewarding patience and nearly eliminating labor, precisely why industrial agriculture never embraced it. By the 1910s, agriculture transcended solely feeding families to encompass market demands. Machines necessitated uniform depth, which in turn required bare soil. Bare soil mandated fertilizer, and fertilizer required factories. The 1905 method disrupted this chain. It nullified the need for repeated hilling, a significant labor component. It reduced fertilizer requirements. While yields might have been unpredictable in individual size, their overall volume was massive. Visually, it appeared untidy. Agricultural authorities deemed it unsanitary and later inefficient, not based on data, but because it diverged from established models. During World War I and II, this method briefly resurfaced. Straw-grown potatoes sustained communities when fuel and labor were scarce. Post-war, it vanished again. The era demanded speed, predictability, and visual uniformity. Potatoes transformed from food into commodities. The layered method delivered abundance, but abundance unburdened by industrial control. Even home gardeners faced discouragement, with magazines cautioning against rodents, fungi, and rot. Notwithstanding, trials consistently demonstrated lower disease rates when airflow and microbial life were preserved. The underlying truth was simpler. A method yielding more with fewer inputs threatened systems predicated on selling more inputs each season. Thus, it was either forgotten or dismissed with derision. Yet soil possesses memory. The method continues to be remarkably effective. Modern gardeners employing it report yields 2 to 3 times greater than trench planting. Soil quality improves annually rather than degrading, and workload substantially decreases. The key lies in the materials employed. Carbon-rich layers are more critical than nitrogen. Think straw, dried leaves, or aged hay. Avoid relying solely on fresh grass, as it compacts. Begin after the soil has slightly warmed, placing seed potatoes once the danger of hard frost has passed. Cover generously. Do not disturb. Do not dig. Do not monitor progress. Allow the plant to develop naturally. As stems grow, add more layers, thinking upward, not downward. Each layer represents potential food production. At season's end, simply pull back the cover and harvest clean, undamaged tubers. Leaving some behind allows the system to self-renew. This method was never legally prohibited. It was forbidden by omission. The Garden Law Vault aims to restore what was erased, not because it failed, but because it liberated people from dependency. The 1905 potato method doesn't just triple yields, it empowers the garden, and that is why it disappeared. The forbidden potato method was never merely about potatoes. It embodied a philosophy that contemporary gardening quietly abandoned. For millennia, food crops were cultivated in harmony with decomposition, protective cover, and time. Forest floors served as the archetype. Leaves fell, organic matter accumulated in layers, and roots explored undisturbed. Nutrients circulated slowly, but continuously. The 1905 method nearly perfectly replicated this natural system. When we plant potatoes deeply and repeatedly expose the soil, we disrupt fungal networks, collapse air pockets, and force roots into compacted layers where oxygen is scarce. The plant survives, but it does not flourish. The layered method reestablishes something more profound than mere yield. It restores soil memory. Microbial life proliferates under permanent cover. Mycorrhizal fungi re-establish connections between roots and minerals. Worm populations triple. Carbon remains sequestered in the ground, instead of oxidizing into the atmosphere. This explains why gardeners employing this method notice something remarkable after 2 or 3 seasons. Not merely superior potatoes, but healthier soil for all other plantings. Previously considered poor beds suddenly produce more robust crops. Water retention improves, weeds diminish, and diseases lose their foothold because the soil is no longer stressed. The method also instills restraint. Modern gardening often encourages constant intervention, digging, fertilizing, correcting. The forbidden method demands trust. Once the layers are applied, one steps back. No checking, no correcting, no fixing. This absence of control can be unsettling, especially for gardeners conditioned to believe effort equates to success. However, biology does not respond to effort. It responds to conditions. The 1905 method works because it cultivates conditions where the plant performs the work itself. This is why it is so readily adopted once rediscovered. Gardeners who try it rarely revert, not because it is easier, but because it feels intrinsically right. It aligns with how potatoes evolved, how soil functions, and how food systems once operated before efficiency overshadowed resilience. This method will never appear in industrial manuals. It will never be optimized for machines. It cannot be patented, packaged, or marketed as a product. It can only be practiced, and that makes it perilous to forget and potent to recall. The Garden Law Vault exists to revive these subtle techniques, the ones erased not by failure, but by their incompatibility with systems of control. The forbidden potato method is not a trick. It is a reminder. Abundance was never engineered. It was layered.